Hey, thank you so much for stopping by the presentation. I really appreciate it. My name is John Ortiz. I'm the technology sales manager for MiaRec. So today I'm going to talk about something that you guys have probably already heard a lot about at this conference and maybe previous conferences. We're going to talk about generative AI and specifically about how you can use Gen AI in quality assurance. So again, really appreciate you guys all stopping by. So just a quick agenda. We'll do an introduction. Already did that. We'll talk about the need for evolution in QA, Gen AI in QA, and then I'll go over some other Gen AI use cases in the contact center, and then we'll talk about some ROI, and then I'll open it up for Q&A. So I'll kind of fly through this really quickly. So when I'm talking about QA, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I'm referring to the process of a human evaluator listening to and manually scoring calls, right? For the purpose of ensuring compliance, making sure agents are following call scripts and things of that nature. Right, so I'll say if your contact center is doing at least some sort of QA, I mean, that's definitely a start, right? It's better than not having anything. But there's definitely a need for evolution in QA, right? There's a lot of limitations with regard to it. So number one being limited visibility, right? I mean, if you're doing QA, you can usually only get to at least between 1 to 5% of your calls, right? So a lot of blind spots there. Another one is it's tedious and time consuming. I used to be a QA analyst actually, and it would take me anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour to do every single call for just one call, right? So it takes a while. Another thing is, with manual QAs, it has low agent engagement and there's some subjectivity problems, right? Like what I mean by low agent engagement is like they essentially see QA as almost like a form of punishment, right? I mean, anytime you get like a QA assessment, it's, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. So. And subjectivity, that just comes with any type of like human involved process, right? Like you might have a human who favors one agent over another, and that can lead to some decreased morale with the agents. And last thing is just a data underutilization, right? Because if you're only analyzing 1% of your calls, you don't really know what's going on with all the other ones, right? So you're missing a lot of insights. So just the impact of these challenges, and number one is lack of certainty. And what I mean by that one is, if you're, again, only evaluating 1% of your calls, on 99% of your calls, you literally cannot say with any level of certainty that your agents are doing things like reading call scripts, reading compliance disclosures, capitalizing on upsell or cross-sell opportunities, right? So you really don't know, right? Another one, tedious and time-consuming, leads to inefficiencies and delays, right? And also it's expensive, right, to pay a QA team to analyze calls. So I would say it's, you're paying these QA teams to analyze and you're getting really little reward in return, right? Because you're, again, only 1% of your calls. One thing that comes from low agent engagement and subjectivity is can lead to decreased morale and decreased performance, right, for sure. And again, data underutilization, you're forfeiting any strategic opportunities, right? You're only looking at a little sample size, right? So all of this stuff kind of leads to bigger problems, right? Like, if you're having a staff of agents that aren't really well trained and you're not making sure they're doing the right things, it's going to lead to poor CX, which leads to lower customer satisfaction and ultimately lower revenue, right? And on the flip side too, like if your agents aren't performing well, you're going to have to get rid of them, or they'll probably just quit on their own, right? Because no one wants to stay at a job where they're not doing well. Right, and we all know how expensive turnover is, right? So that leads to higher costs, and if you have higher costs and lower revenue, you're gonna have lower profitability, right? So there's definitely, again, just a need for evolution in QA, and that's why we're excited now that generative AI is around. It can help you with analyzing all of your calls. So with Gen AI, what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna show you kind of how we've incorporated it into our platform. And, I'm sure there's a lot of other kind of vendors that are doing something similar, but just so you can kind of have a general idea of how you can use it and what you can do. But with Gen AI, AQM, I mean, you can automatically evaluate and score calls, right? I mean, that's number one thing. Number two is, because the Gen AI, it understands the context of conversations, right? So because of that, it can, provide really, really high accuracy with regard to the results of the QA scores, right? Another thing too, again, 100% visibility, right? So that the lack of certainty goes away. Now that what your agents are doing and what they're not doing. All right, eliminate subjectivity, right? So that's another one. And of course, consistent QA assessments, right? So instead of a human evaluator doing it, they might do it different every time. You have everything happening the same every single time, right? And higher agent engagement, right? I mean, now that the agents are having all their calls reviewed, not only are they getting their QA scores like when they've done a poor job, but they'll see all their scores when they did a great job, right? So it's just a more, I guess, engaging process for the agents to have all of your calls evaluated, right? And Gen AI provides really significant ROI. I'll touch on that a little bit more later, but these are just some of the benefits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk you through like how we leverage generative AI in the QA process, right? So you can kind of get an idea for how to do it. But number one is you need to build your scorecard, right? I mean, I'm sure all of you, if you have a QA department, you have a different scorecard or scorecards, right? So the first thing that you want to do if you're using our platform is build out your scorecard, and it's super easy to do because all you need to do is literally type out the questions that you want to evaluate the agents on, right? And then you assign some points to them, right? So some examples are like, did the agent greet the customer? Did they get their zip code? Whatever your QA kind of criteria is, you build that within the interface, which is super easy to do. After that, what you want to do is you want to create an auto scoring job. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is, essentially what you're doing is you're telling the AI which calls you want it to evaluate, right? So if you want your scorecard to evaluate all your calls, you can do that. Or if you want one QA scorecard to evaluate only particular calls, you can do that as well. So for example, like say you have a customer service department and you have a customer service scorecard, you can have that scorecard run against the customer service calls. You have a sales department and a sales scorecard, run that scorecard against those calls, right? So you're basically running things conditionally based on the criteria. Like example here is, we're using this scorecard to evaluate our claims and warranty operations for calls that are longer than 5 minutes. Right, so you can get really granular with how you want to evaluate the calls, is the point I guess I'm trying to make. Now after that, you want to review the results, right? I mean, once your scorecard's created and they're evaluating, you'll get some results. So just so we're aware, like the first thing that we do with MiaRec is we transcribe the calls, right? So the scoring of all these, the QA scores rather, it's based off the transcript and the questions that you make in your scorecard. Right, so the AI is searching the transcript to see if the criteria for these questions has been met. So like, did the agent greet the caller? Did they say their own name, right? All of those questions are being answered automatically by AI. And her name is Emily, right? So it's giving you proof. It's giving you like, this is why I did that, right? Just so you can kind of rest assured, right? Now, after that, I mean, your calls are being evaluated. So it's happening on a singular level. So obviously now you want to see an aggregation of data, right? Like, how is my contact center performing with regard to QA? So that's what the dashboards are for. So in the dashboard, you can check out, over any specified time range, like a week or a month or whatever you want to do. You can see how many evaluations have been completed, what's the average score. You can see a graphical representation of the average score by day. What's also very, very helpful is in the dashboard, it shows the average scores broken down by section of the scorecard, right? So in this example, the scorecard has 4 different sections: greeting, verification, problem resolution, and closing. So each one of those sections has an average score. In the example here, this verification section of the scorecard, our average score is only 51.6. So that allows us to zero in on where our agents are doing well or where they're not doing well, right? So obviously they're tanking this portion of the scorecard so we know where to focus our training efforts, right? And additionally, the QA dashboards are going to provide you average scores broken down on a per user basis, right? So this allows you to see exactly who your top performers are, who your middle performers are, and who your bottom performers are, right? So in this example, Tiffany Johnson, her average score is 83.9, while Aaron Marquez is 76.7. So he's the one that's performing the worst. And then you'll notice these 2% change here. So what that is showing is trend analysis. So we're looking at these QA scores and seeing if our agents are over any, previous period of time, are their scores going up or are they going down, right? So you can, again, really use that data to see if your agents are responding well to coaching. Maybe they're on a performance plan. You want to see how their scores are changing over time. So the trend analysis is super helpful. But yeah, I mean, that's just a really quick overview of how you can use generative AI in your QA. And it basically solves for all those problems we talked about earlier, right? So instead of, worse CX, we're going to get more insights into performance. We're going to have a better trained staff. So we're going to be able to provide better CX, higher CSAT, which leads to higher or increased revenue, right? And the other one too, your agents are going to be more engaged. They're going to be more well-trained, right? So that's going to lead to higher agent retention, right? Which saves money on things like turnover. So you'll have lower costs and ultimately increased profitability, right? So Yeah, again, I mean, that's just some of the results of using Gen AI in your QM or QA process. Super effective. So I'll give you guys some chances to ask some questions after this, but really quickly, I just wanted to discuss a couple other use cases that we have for generative AI in the contact center. And this one kind of goes hand in hand with QA, right? So not only can you use QA to score the calls automatically, but you can use it to can't provide feedback on every call. So, but AI can, right? So your agents can come into the VREC interface and open up any call, and you'll see there's areas of improvement. Like the agent should have introduced themselves at the beginning of the call. The agent should have paid closer to attention to the customer's response, right? The AI is going to provide targeted coaching for every single call. So that's another use case. From 2 to 5 minutes on post-call work on every call. And a majority of that time is spent on writing manual summaries, right? So when they're writing manual summaries, they can't designer. And in short, it allows you to build out your own prompts, and you can test your AI prompts against your own call data. So I'll show you just a really quick example of what that looks like here. Give me 1 second. Let me play this here. So this is a video of me using the AI playground, right? So this is where you can test out your prompts. You click the playground, and you can select one of your own calls for testing, right? So basically, I'm going to just select one of these calls here, and we're going to build out a prompt and see what it looks like. So in this call, it's a customer calling in to order a prescription, right? So let's say I'm a Walgreens pharmacy. I want to know on every single call, what kind of medications are my customers ordering, most common, right? So I can build out a prompt that says, tell me the type of medication this customer ordered, right? And once I do that, I can just test it out, right? You hit test button, and then based on this transcript, the AI is going to spit out a response. So in this example, it's saying the customer ordered the medication Lipinex in 10 milligram dose. So it's providing me the exact information that I want, and something that I can aggregate. And what it's doing now is I'm just refining the prompt a little bit, because all I want to really know is just the name of the medication and just the milligrams. Because now I can start actually aggregating that data with that prompt, right? Because every call will come in, maybe you're taking metformin at 20 milligrams, whatever, right? So using that info, you can start aggregating to see, what are my customers calling in for, what kind of medication, it's like just one kind of use case, but I'm sure you can imagine like how you can use it for your contact. And just to kind of like demonstrate the flexibility of this, I just put in another quick prompt, like tell me the date of birth of this customer. And again, it searches the transcript, and it shows that his birthday is on August 21st, 1999. So you can use the AI prompt designer to build out any type of prompts that you want, and if you like them, put them into production in your contact center, right? Now one last thing I wanted to just quickly talk about is the ROI that's provided by this. Like, obviously the Gen AI provides ROI in better customer experience and things of that nature, but there's some really solid concrete examples where you can use actual variables to get a specific number on ROI. And one of them is with AQM or automated QM, right? So just some examples of some variables. Like let's say you have 10 QA managers and they have to complete 50 manual evaluations every month. It takes them about an hour for evaluation, and you're paying them $30 per hour, right? Some really realistic variables. Based on that, if you're using our Gen AI for AQM, you're going to save 500 hours every month, or 1.67 work weeks per manager, and it nets $180,000 of ROI based on time saved in the labor cost, right? So that was a really good use case. And another one that's even better is if you do the automatic call summary. Because again, your agents take a lot of time to write these summaries. So if we're doing it for them, we're going to save a lot of time in the labor costs you pay, right? So let's say you have 200 agents who take 1,100 calls per month, which is like 50 calls per day, right? That's a low number. And it takes them 2 minutes to write a summary, and they're paid $15 an hour. This is the ROI that you'll see from time saved to labor costs. It's $1.2 million for just this example, right? Not to mention you're saving 7,000 hours of time where they spend writing those summaries. Right, so pretty intense with regard to the ROI on CUG Gen AI. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of everything I wanted to talk about with AQM and Gen AI. So I'll open it up for questions now. Yeah, so they have access to the dashboard. So with MeRec, it has role-based access, right? So if you want your agents to only access their own calls to see that, then yeah, you can do that. Or you can give them permission to see, their teammates, whatever. But yeah, they have access to see the data within the application. Exactly. So question was, can they see their own stats in the dashboard? Sorry. Any other questions?
That sounds good. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you all coming by.